Hi, my name is Lauren Dobler. I am president of the Windsor Sage Park Middle School Leos. This is my grandfather, Robert Pilvenis, and today I'm interviewing him about his time that he spent in the military. All right, so I have a few questions for you. So the first question that I have is, what branch of the military were you in?
I was in the U.S. Air Force.
Okay. Next is, what inspired you to enlist?
Well, I was at UConn and I got into advanced ROTC to become an officer because I wanted to fly. And they accepted me, fortunately, and started my career there.
Okay. The third question that I have is, how many years did you serve?
I served 4 years from 1960 to 64.
All right. The next question is, where were you based?
Well, fortunately, I was first assignment. I was supposed to go to flight school. They caught an eye technicality, so I got a direct assignment to an air base. It was a refueling air base for the Strategic Air Command, which was a part of the Air Force. And that was in Great Falls, Montana, big sky country. And I was an outdoorsman. So fishing, hunting, skiing was just fantastic.
All right. Next was, what was the most dangerous thing you did while you were serving?
Well, I was in charge of security at this major base, 250 people under me. And we had not only did we have live border guards and all that, so no one can come in and attack and break up the refueling airplanes, but at midnight or whatnot, I used to go on the outside, on the other side of the base in the outskirts. There was nothing from there for 50 miles, but we had a dog patrol. So I'd go over there when they were training and I'd put on a padded suit and let the dogs attack me. That was the most dangerous, but they couldn't hurt me, so it was fun.
Yeah. The next question that I have is actually, what was the most fun thing that you did?
Oh, I spent 2 years in Montana, and that was fun all the time. But then I got a call one day and said, "Hey, you're going to go overseas." I said, "Well, where's that?" And they said, "You're going to go to England." So fortunately, I had several of my people had been on the base I was going to, and that was 60 miles west of London on a 1 hour train ride. So that was very fantastic.
Okay. Next is, did you make any like lifelong friends while you were serving?
Oh yeah, I've got still a couple I keep in touch with, and they were one's a dentist in Detroit. And after we got out, I went to his wedding and see him now and then. So, and now we're all getting older.
Yeah. Next is, like, did any friends enlist with you?
Well, I had four people that I lived with my senior year in college, and three of us were accepted. One was going into flight school, and the other one went to missile. He was a missile control officer. He used to go out and sit in a hole in the ground for 24 hours and ready to push the buttons if necessary.
Okay. What was the best and like most important thing that you learned from being in the military?
Well, first of all, you have to have a basic, very strong discipline. And I had 250 men under me. About half of them were of Negro descent. And we played a lot of basketball, and we became very close, on and off the base. Because in England, we were always going down to the local restaurants, and there was always some of these guys kicking around, so it was fun. And the second thing on that is I learned how to manage 250 men, but of course you have military discipline. So I never had a problem.
All right. Here's one. What is the difference between the military that like the military while you were serving, and what it is today?
Well, we were serving during what they call the Cold War. That's when we were kind of not seeing things the same way with Russia. So we had all these airplanes ready to go on alert up in the sky. And so there was a lot of discipline there. And luckily, never led to anything. I served through the Berlin crisis and the Cuban crisis, if you knew what they were.
Um, would you enlist in like the military for today, and then why?
Well, I would have gone through ROTC, which you can do today. So I would probably, because the goal was to get my pilot's license and fly whatever it was. I want to be a fighter pilot. So I'd still pursue that if I was young enough. And, luckily now I'm older, so let the new breed take over, but they're doing a good job.
All right. Can you describe a day in the Air Force, like when you were serving?
Well, the average thing would get up in the morning. We were 24-hour operations. So sometimes I had to pull a midnight shift at 8 in the morning. And sometimes I just had I had 4 different responsibilities. One was base security. Second was determining pass identification. We used to get new men on the base, and I had to get the paperwork from Washington that they were qualified to, do what the security aspect was. Thirdly, I had the base police, which is at 22 years old, I was chief of police on a 5,000 person base. We had people living on base too, families. And lastly, I ran a little jail in Montana. But we did have other people in the military act up. Like we had one Indian. We were, Montana's got quite a few Indian tribes. And one day we got a report of a guy that he went AWOL, and so we went up, we knew where he'd be. So we brought him back and put him into prison. And so he was a nice guy. He just didn't want to be in the military. So he was so good while we were waiting for whatever the legal people were going to do. They would get him for AWOL or desertion, whatever. So we let him work down at the horse barn because we had a little stable there with probably 20, 30 horses. And one day he never showed back up. So it was a wide open expanse from there to the Missouri River. I said, well, let's go out towards between there and the Missouri River. He was riding a horse. He was going to go back to Browning, Montana, which was a 3-hour drive northwest of us. So we found him out in the wheat fields there, but it was funny.
Okay. What was the most rewarding thing that you did?
Well, we kept the peace, and that's not just me, but the whole effort. And I never had a problem with my troops. And secondly, because we played so much, I was kind of the athletic man on base too. So we played a lot of fast pitch locally. And second, we had a good basketball league, so we were playing. I was reffing because I didn't want to play with the troops. And we got a call. I got a call one day. His team asked us if we want to come down to this Army base 30, 40 miles away. I said, oh, we'll come down. So I took the best men we had, and we got down and we were playing basketball. And man, it was a different brand of ball because in those days they were allowing a lot of elbowing and body checking, you name it. So at the end, I asked the other coaches, who is your team here anyway? And it was actually the British Olympic basketball team.
Okay. if you could if you could join the military today, what branch would you choose?
Oh, I'd still probably go in the Marine Corps. I'm sorry, the Air Force. Secondly, I would have gone in the Marine Corps to try to fly something in fighters in the Marine Corps, but that's all history now.
All right. I have this might be the last one, but I'm not sure. Um, where were you stationed, like when you
Well, I
were?
told you, I was in Great Falls, Montana, which is right on the Missouri River. It was the last distance that the Lewis and Clark expedition could go without, because the Great Falls, they couldn't get upriver anymore. So then they had to go by foot and horseback, whatever they did from there to go to the West Coast, which was 700 miles away. So we that was rewarding. And because I did a lot of fishing, hunting. Glacier Park was 2-3 hour drive. Uh, and then when I got to England, that was just remarkable because there was so much history to see, and I knew London pretty well, except you can't see it all even in 2 years. And I had some girlfriends that were quite historical, so we'd go to like the Tower of London, and they could tell you the whole history of what was going on. Of course, I've forgotten it all now. But my favorite trip was being in London, go down to Thames or the Thames River, and they had these tourist boats with loudspeakers, and they would point out all the history where Shakespeare used to be in the pub there and all that. So it was interesting.
Okay, and then the last question that I have is it kind of goes along with all of them, but it's what did you do in the Air Force?
All right, as I say, I was in charge of the security there. But when we were in England, we were on actually a Royal Air Force base. We were tenants there, so I had control of the Yank people working for me, but I worked closely with a couple of local security people, and it was great. We had a nice living quarters on base, and of course I had to be within, get up and go if whatever a case was, and it was very rewarding. And I used to love London. We go back there once in a while, you know that.
Okay, I mean, that's all I have. So like anything else you want to add?
Well, I would encourage everybody in this world, as you go through life, that in those days when you came out of high school, you either got a job, which wasn't rewarding. You went in the military because there was a draft situation where the people had to go in. And I had a bunch of friends join the Marine Corps. I had one friend of mine flew in 3 trips to Vietnam. Fraternity brother of mine went 3 trips to Vietnam as a ground officer, and shooting bullets. And so it gave me good experience. If once you get out of the military, especially if you're lucky enough to get commissioned, means you become a lieutenant. I got out as a captain. You could go to businesses, and you just have a great resume to go from there. And that's for boys and girls now. We didn't have many girl officers in our day. Nurses were the only ones, I guess.
All right, that's all I have. So
Okay, well, thank you. You did a nice job.